Good morning. Thanks for joining us this morning for our Downtown Service 101, Essential Training for Challenging Encounters discussion. My name is Todd Cutts. I'm the Executive Director of the Olympia Downtown Alliance. As you all know, our mission is to act as a catalyst for a vibrant and thriving downtown through service to our property owners and our small business owners, nonprofits downtown. We work to achieve this mission by focusing on image making, advocacy, economic development, supporting a clean, safe, and healthy environment downtown as well. Today, we're really going to focus on that, the clean, safe, and healthy downtown component. A clean and safe environment is really foundational, essential for the health of any downtown. Without this, we find ourselves in a space where our community doesn't feel comfortable and ultimately doesn't visit. I'm in the middle of something right now. I can't talk right now. I'm sorry. Sorry. Sorry about that. At this point in time, this is really a primary obstacle to the health of our downtown. So borne out by some recent survey work conducted by the city and the Alliance, so the city conducted a community survey in 2020 and followed up in 2021. The Alliance conducted a survey of stakeholders and 160 stakeholders responded in August of 2021. That it yielded some interesting results, and what we have with us today are the team of folks that are helping us to create that foundation of a clean, safe, and healthy downtown environment. So I'm going to share my screen for a moment and share some of the information from that survey. So there was a question in the community survey about whether downtown was on the right track or the wrong direction. We echoed that question within our Downtown Alliance survey. The blue is for downtown stakeholders, the orange is the community survey. So of downtown stakeholders, 51% felt that we were on the wrong track downtown, 49% felt like we were going in the right direction. In the community survey, even an increased percentage, 79% felt like we were on the wrong track downtown. So why is this? What were the most common concerns that came out as part of that survey? In the downtown stakeholder survey, as well as the community survey, the top 4 answers were the same, and actually the same in rank order. People having mental health crises was first, trash, litter, graffiti, and hygiene was next. People not having access to permanent shelter was third, and public drug use was fourth. There was also a question in there regarding how safe do you feel downtown. You'll see here we have not only downtown stakeholders and the 2021 community survey, but also results from the 2017 community survey that's been benchmarked. So I'm going to focus on the 2021 community survey and the 2017 community survey. So the safety feeling daytime in the downtown, while it was 78% of those respondents feeling safe during the day in downtown in 2017, now it's 59% in 2021. Nighttime, it was 37% feeling safe in 2017, and now it's 24% in 2021. I'm going to unshare my screen here. So that's why we're here today, to talk about the team that's working through these issues. And the city has put together a robust set of resources for our downtown, for our community. You'll see our agenda today and our panelists. We have with us Sergeant Shelby Parker from the Olympia Police Department, Downtown Walking Patrol. Katherine Trahan will be joining us. She's had some technical difficulties, but she'll be here by the time it's her turn to speak. She is the Downtown Ambassador Supervisor for the city. We have Larsen, the Outreach Services Coordinator from the city. She oversees our Crisis Response Unit and our Familiar Faces program. She'll talk about those. I'll talk just a little bit about our Downtown Guide program. We will have time at the end that we've carved out for audience questions and panelist responses. You should see on your GoToMeeting or GoToWebinar dashboard an opportunity for you to plug questions in there. I encourage you to listen to what our panelists have to say and be thinking about what questions you have for them. I will then at the end curate those questions. I will give them to the panelists and we'll go from there. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Sergeant Shelby Parker to share what's going on with Downtown Walking Patrol. Thank you.
Good morning, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm Shelby Parker. I'm a sergeant with the Olympia Police Department, and I'm assigned to the Downtown Walking Patrol. I'm newly assigned. I started my job in August, and we've been seeing some good changes. I've been with OPD for 18 years, 3 years as a supervisor. In that time, I've held a number of positions, motorcycle officer, detective, drug recognition expert, whole host of things that make me well qualified to supervise the downtown crew. My email address, let's leave with that so everybody can send me questions directly if they would like, is sparker, SPARKER @ci.olympia.wa.us. I will make sure that everybody has access to that email address again at the end. So who is the walking patrol comprised of? Besides myself, I have 6 officers in the unit, 3 that are working at any one time. Our hours are roughly from 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. And those staffing numbers can change just based upon vacations, training, sick time, things that are unforeseen. What do we focus on? We focus on being visible in the downtown core, enforcing nuisance crimes, engaging in creative problem solving, and working with a multiple number of city departments, and that includes downtown ambassadors, crisis response unit referred to as crew, homeless response, code enforcement, parking enforcement, clean team, as well as partnering with the downtown guides. It takes a lot of folks coming together to make a vibrant downtown. We are working on telling you what we are doing through data collection. It's a challenging thing to gather data for this particular unit. We gather our data through dispatch as well as arrests information and also an app that we have on our phones. We're tracking specifically a couple of things. Area checks, and that would be when we are in any given block, we touch a button on our application on our phone and it geotags where we are and that we were present. It's a good way of reporting back to you what we're doing, as well as wake ups or loiters. So anytime somebody is sitting on the sidewalk or we're waking them up, we're counting that too. To give you an idea of our statistics for the month, we're 41 days into this quarter, and we have 633 area checks logged and 250 wake ups or loiterers. I would ask you to understand that those numbers are very, very low. There's a number of reasons why we have challenges tracking our activity, the least of which are our officer safety concerns. We can't always be looking at our phones when we have things that we need to address. Some excited staffing changes are coming up this year. Starting in January, I have 2 new members, and that's exciting. It'll help kind of get the walking patrol focused in the way that I think is best suited for the city. In terms of our engagement with businesses, we're really focusing on being visible in the downtown core. And so both due to COVID and to maximize our visibility, we're not stopping into too many businesses. We're walking and moving and having engagements with folks to move them along, get them out of the alcoves, get them up off the sidewalks. So if you would like us to specifically come into your business and make a connection with staff or employees, I would ask you to email me directly at that sparker@ci.olympia.wa.us. Otherwise, we're going to keep on moving through the downtown core to really maximize that visibility. Now, when it comes to what can stakeholders in the downtown core do to maximize their response from law enforcement, we're looking at a couple things. Number one, when you call into dispatch, things sometimes break down there. So I'm going to ask for some very specific things when folks call dispatch. You have to advocate for yourself and your business by being very clear about what is going on. Do not minimize what's going on, though don't inflate it either. You just got to tell us exactly what's going on. I need you to call 911 if there is any danger to yourself, to your staff, to patrons or the public. If you believe that the person that you're calling about presents any risk, it is a 911 call, and please don't hesitate to call 911. If the dispatcher believes that it doesn't fit a 911 call, they're going to transfer you off a 911 line. So please, if there's any risk, don't hesitate to call 911. Now, non-emergency, that phone number, I'm sure we all have it, but it's 360-704-2740. That's the non-emergency line for dispatch. It's just like calling 911. It just doesn't tie up those priority lines. Go ahead and call that number. If you need to report something that doesn't reach the safety concern to anybody, yourself, your staff, the public. That could be somebody came into your business and stole something, and this happened 5 minutes ago. That would be a good call to call the non-emergency line. We don't have the threat to public safety. If you're worried about somebody that appears to be in crisis and they're safely on the sidewalk, they're not in traffic, absolutely call the non-emergency number, ask for a crisis response unit to respond. That's crew. Law enforcement may accompany them. That gets determined not necessarily always by the caller, but sometimes by the dispatcher and law enforcement listening to the radio. Essentially, if you really feel like the public is not at risk or somebody's not in risk, go ahead and call that non-emergency number. Ambassadors, as well as Ann representing crew, will talk to you about when they're the more appropriate phone call. Again, I'd ask that you really advocate for yourself when you call. I work with a lot of the businesses to find out what went wrong. Hey, I called dispatch, a police officer didn't come. And when I listen to the calls through dispatch and I read what's written, there was a breakdown in communication that was never provided to law enforcement. And so we really have to make sure our communication on the front end from the caller is fantastic. When you're asking for law enforcement to respond, it is excellent if you ask for the walking patrol to respond. We're a unique unit that really cares very deeply about our downtown businesses and stakeholders. And there have been some legislative changes. If folks want to ask about that, I'll provide more information in a question answer format. I just don't want to take up all the time here today talking about legislative changes. But what's most important to understand about the legislative changes is your police department is still here for you, and we are still going to respond. That response just looks a little different. Rather than immediately coming to the area, if somebody's not in harm's way, we may call you and ask for further information because what came through to us from dispatch wasn't adequate. That filter can sometimes just be broken. We call, we ask for more information. Then we determine, do we have the legal authority to do something? What you as a 911 or dispatch caller should expect is to hear from a police officer. And I need you to ask dispatch to have an officer either call you or make in-person contact if you feel comfortable. And if that doesn't happen, I want to know about it. I want to go back and find out where the disconnect was. Was it through dispatch? Was it through the police department? And so we can improve the services that we're providing our downtown stakeholders. Again, when you call dispatch, if you need law enforcement to respond, and you can, ask for a walking patrol officer. We just, we have a little different lens on the legislation. We're a little bit more comfortable playing in what we would call the gray area to really serve our downtown businesses. So when you can, ask for that. I think it's really important to understand the Olympia municipal codes. A lot of our stakeholders, they go into the online municipal code and they start reading about all these statutes that they perceive the police department can enforce. And what's not written in the municipal code are all of the constraints that law enforcement has in our response. The bulk of the ordinances require some unique things. They require either law enforcement to witness what is occurring in order to make an in custody arrest or enforce, or they require somebody to be a victim, somebody to be willing to put their name down on a statement and to cooperate with the courts in a process. And so I'd ask you to be mindful of those things. I'm going to go through a couple just to give you an idea. Disorderly conduct, that can look like somebody hooting, hollering, being disruptive, music being played. That is one of those things that needs to be witnessed by law enforcement in order for us to arrest somebody, as well as a lot of the prongs, the separate pieces within that statute, they do require us to have a victim. So what that would look like is if you're a downtown stakeholder and you call in because somebody is playing music very loudly, I'm gonna need you to participate in the process in order for me to take enforcement action. Now, a walking patrol officer is still going to be very comfortable approaching that individual and saying, hey, outside of the ordinance, I need you to turn it down. But just know that if they say, make me, I may not be able to because I don't have the legal authority without your participation. Drinking in public, it's an offense we have. It was decriminalized a number of years back by the state. It is a monetary fine. I liken it to a parking ticket. So I just ask you to keep that in mind, as it's not an arrestable offense. Pedestrian interference, this is the bread and butter of downtown. We have folks that are frequently obstructing pedestrian traffic on the sidewalk, as well as walking out into traffic. This is something that does need to be witnessed by law enforcement, and my team's expectation for myself is we will enforce it. Specifically, the sitting on the sidewalk, obstructing traffic between the hours of 7 a.m. to midnight. It can't happen, and we need to be moving people along. I'd ask you, if you have a problem outside of your business with somebody sitting, go ahead and either call the non-emergency number, email me, reach out to us, because while we'd like to be everywhere at the same time, we're just not. Urinating in public, this is unacceptable. We can't have people urinating and defecating in the downtown core when we have multiple restrooms for them to use. It does have to be witnessed by law enforcement unless it falls into lewd conduct, which is where maybe you've seen something anatomical during that process. And my team, again, has marching orders from me that we will be enforcing that. It's unacceptable. Possession of narcotics, it's challenging. We've had some legislative changes. The bottom line is law enforcement does have to witness it, and folks are given 2 warnings before they can be taken into custody for that offense. And then we have trespass, a very important ordinance downtown. Individuals for trespass, they must be on private property, and the business or property owner does have to participate in this process. If you can have your alcove signed with no trespass signs, that's fantastic. The prosecutor does have to overcome a hurdle that the suspect would have known that they were trespassing. Sounds simple, but little things like no trespass signs make that significantly easier for the prosecutor. Most officers outside of walking patrol will ask that you have asked the person to move along. That gives us probable cause to immediately effect an arrest if we need to. To be really clear, more often than not, our trespass scenarios, they resolve with compliance. The goal is not for us necessarily to go out and arrest everybody. It's to make the contact, to educate them, connect them with resources if we can, compassionately engage with them, and work towards a solution. Very rarely does it end up in an arrest scenario. And that brings me to being courteous to my other panelists with time. So again, please, if you have questions, I'd very much like to answer them at the end.
Great, thank you, Sergeant Parker. So next, we're going to go to Downtown Ambassador Supervisor Katherine Trahan to talk about our Downtown Ambassador Program. Katherine?
Hi. So I like to think most folks on this call know about the Ambassador Program. If not, give me a call, 360-338-2853. Program has 4 ambassadors. We focus on the downtown core. We're always on foot. Our goal is to be visible, to create a safe and welcoming downtown. So we respond to dispatch calls from the community and business owners, as well as proactively engaging with folks. We engage with folks having a mental health crisis, behavior issues, people that don't understand the parking, people looking for a good place to go get pizza. But we do a lot of work with our downtown businesses and the folks that sometimes go there looking for a place to get out of the weather or looking for a place to just kind of get off the streets. So I just wanted to give some tips besides calling your resources like the 3 programs here, what you can do as a business to maybe help those awkward interactions go a little better and maybe de-escalate something before it becomes an issue. My first recommendation is if you have a large staff, or actually no matter how many staff you have, get all on the same page about how you want to deal with issues if they come up. So hope for the best, look for the best, but plan for the worst. What do we want to do if someone steals a customer's sweater? Do we want to let people sleep here? Are we going to let people bring their carts in? Are we going to let people use the bathroom? It's really good if all the employees are on the same page, because what I've seen before is you're so busy, making this great product or performing great customer service that one employee might give permission for something and then another employee is like, hey, that guy isn't supposed to be in here. And then that makes a conflict not only for the person who got a mixed message, but also for how the staff is going to resolve it. So also, if you have problem individuals, like somebody that is constantly an issue and you as a team don't want them in there anymore, maybe have a little little description of what the person looks like. Some businesses even have photos of people that from their security cameras, like, hey, this person caused a problem. For example, we got a dispatch call to ask someone to leave a coffee shop, and a new employee had already taken their money and done a coffee order. So there was that mixed messaging there for the business. And that's where I go into clear is kind. Having boundaries that you as a business are comfortable with enforcing and being on the same page makes it a lot easier when you need to engage with that individual and say, I'm sorry, but we have a rule here and you can't bring your carts in. They're going to go to your coworker, and if your coworker's like, yeah, they're right, you can't bring your carts in. You're all on the same footing. You all know exactly what your boundary is to keep your business safe. Those conversations can be challenging. Ambassadors always work in pairs. If you have the ability to have 2 employees, I recommend that. Have one employee make that engagement while the other employee stands behind, not threatening, not blocking the person's exit, but doing a show of force in a way, and also having a phone readily available in case you do need to call the non-emergency or 911. But it really also shows the person that everyone there is serious about this boundary, serious about you not being there or about your behavior. And it does help kind of have a show of force, because there's a lot of times when you'll go in and you'll ask somebody something, and if you're not confident in asking them to leave or confident in saying, hey, can you move aside? I got to get into my business. They can tell, and they might try to get you into this dialogue or try to work with you on get around things, but just know what you need as a business. It can be really challenging on a rainy, terrible day outside to say, no, you can't be here. But that's where you can call the downtown ambassadors. We will walk with people to resources, and we also know where a lot of options are and who people are. There might also be some changes you can make to your actual retail or restaurant. Do you have any blind spots inside your business? Is there a really good spot that someone could come in and do shoplifting or maybe take a nap and you wouldn't even notice? Maybe you need to get those round mirrors and put one up in a corner. Check out your blind spots. Check out where you've got stuff that'd be perfect for shoplifting. Maybe bring it closer to the register. What's your line of sight for a register? How long does it take before an employee actually sees who's come through the door? My calls for trespass engagement went down significantly during COVID when employees were at the door checking for face masks and keeping track of how many people can come in. It's also a really great way to nip shoplifting in the bud right away. Just immediately making eye contact, saying hello, and I recognize you. I know you're here, and I just want you to know that I know. And that's great from a customer service point of view, and it's also great in a de-escalation point of view. Because when we get calls where someone has managed to sneak all the way back to a store and is hunkered down, it's a lot harder to get somebody out from the back of a business than from the very front or from the alcove. So yeah, get on the same page with your coworkers about how you want to address issues. Does your supervisor want to fill out an authorization for trespass so that if they're not in the business, it doesn't fall on you? You can say, you know what, as a team, our boss said we have given law enforcement the authority to use this. I think, a lot of folks feel sometimes timid in these confrontational situations, especially when there's a power dynamic, which there often feels like there is. You can call the ambassadors. Trust your gut feeling, especially for the female staff workers out there. I'd really like you to trust your gut. If something is off, if something's making you uncomfortable, It doesn't mean you have the person's in crisis or it's the law enforcement, but you just want an extra pair of eyes. You know, there's a lot of shops where there really is only one person in there or two people in there. Go ahead, call the ambassadors. We'll walk on in, we'll help you have that conversation, or we'll have the conversation for you. I think for the most part, folks know when somebody isn't actually there to shop and is there maybe because they're experiencing their own reality, or they're just trying to get out of the weather, or maybe they're having a really hard time with the boundaries that you guys need to set. And I so think it's important that our downtown businesses are able to feel safe when they come to work, and that their customers feel safe to go to work. Because if our downtown businesses can thrive, then our downtown will thrive, and then we'll be able to have the funding for the programs like the low-income housing and the shelters. If we don't have these little mom and pop shops that are killing it downtown, we're also not going to have the resources for people that have nowhere to go, that are living on the streets. So yeah, work as a team, figure out what your policy is going to be. Maybe there's a look around at your actual space. I encourage lighting. It's the #1 like crime preventative. Get some really good lighting on the outside. You know, it's daylight save and it's really dark right now. And also make sure, you know, I love window displays and I really encourage them this time of year, but don't completely block your view of what's happening outside. You want a clear line of sight of what is happening in front of your business. Because as you know, let's say you have a window and it's covered in posters. It says all these awesome events that are going on. There might be somebody in front of that poster who is being really aggressive to everyone who's trying to come in your business. And you're not seeing that because you don't have that line of sight. So keep that in mind. You want to make sure that folks are feeling comfortable to come on in. Then if that behavior is happening, go ahead and call the ambassadors and we can engage. But if you don't know what's happening, you don't know how many customers are having that bad experience. So I don't know how I'm doing on time. I am talking like I'm on fire. How am I doing? I think I'm good. I think I got it.
Okay, fine and unmute. Thank you, Katherine. Appreciate it. Good tips. I posted those tips in the chat. So we're going to move along to Ann Larsen to talk about Crisis Response Unit and Familiar Faces. Ann?
Thanks, Todd. Hi, Katherine. Good to see you. So I'm Ann Larsen. I'm a civilian employee at the Olympia Police Department, and I've been here since 2018. I was hired to create an alternative response to law enforcement, which is our Crisis Response Unit. It is based off of a model from Eugene, Oregon called Cahoots. So currently we have 8 full-time crew members. We just added 2 more on, and we are hiring 3 more to make us 11 strong. We run 7 days a week. Currently, we are 7 a.m. to 8:40 p.m. Monday through Thursday, and 10 a.m. to 8:40 p.m. Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And we're transitioning hopefully over to 21 hours a day, so 6 a.m. to 3 a.m. Hopefully by the first quarter of 2022. So the team are unarmed civilian responders. They are on police radio, so they're hearing all the calls for service that Sergeant Parker and her team are hearing as well. You can get a hold of our team through that non-emergency dispatch number that Shelby gave out earlier, 360-704-2740. When you call and ask for the crew team, I will reiterate exactly what Shelby said, is the more information, the better. And if you don't necessarily want a crew response and you want a phone detail, be really clear about that. Say, hey, something's going on. Can I have the current crew team give me a call? Can we have a phone detail? And you'll get a call back from the crew team that's on, and they can talk you through a situation and determine whether a response is needed or not. So calling non-emergency and giving them as much information as you can is really important. They can also tell you at dispatch if the crew team is on a call currently. So if one team is on, you could ask, is the crew team busy right now? What's the estimated response time? So you might want to see if you would want to call Katherine and her team, or if it escalates and you need to call and ask for Shelby and her team. So the more information, the better, I think, is the message that all 3 of us will definitely universally convey. So what do? We do cover the entire city. So we don't have a downtown specific crew team. So we are responding to calls throughout the city of Olympia. We're paid for by the public safety levy. So Olympia is our response region, but we do cover the entire jurisdiction. What do? We show up. So we have six rigs between the two programs. We have 4 crew rigs and 2 familiar faces rigs. A big part of what we can do is put somebody in a van, even if it is just to get them some dry socks and some coffee and to move them from one location to another. So we do not have all the back end services we need to help people be completely successful, whether it's finding shelter or treatment or medical care. But what we can do oftentimes, if the person is willing, is to get them in the van, swing them through, get them some coffee, get them warm, get them from here down to here so that they can be more successful in the community when they get back out. That being said, that is everything that we do is free and voluntary. So we have no legal authority. We show up and someone's having big behaviors. I think the #1 downtown call for our team is the quote unquote unwanted individual at a certain location. And so the team gets dispatched, we arrive, we oftentimes know the individual and have rapport. We're super blessed with having a really consistent staff. So our 6 crew team members, 5 out of the 6 were the originals from 2018, and then 1 transitioned over. Teal Russell, who was an ambassador and the homeless response coordinator. So folks that really know our population and know our clients. So they show up and they, the skills that they bring to a scene are de-escalation, problem solving. The resources that they bring is that we can provide resources like sweatpants and shoes and blankets. If folks get trapped in Olympia, we can buy bus tickets. This happens frequently. Boy meets girl, boy dumps girl in downtown Olympia, or vice versa. And then we have someone from Corvallis, Oregon, or Seattle that is stuck in Olympia. And so we have the resources to try to help connect people to a location that they have supports and they can be more successful. But what we don't have is authority. So if we show up and the person wants nothing to do with us and gives us the double birds and heads down the road, we're not going to go after them and put hands on them and tell them that behavior is inappropriate. The folks that have authority in our community are law enforcement, the fire department. If somebody needs to go to the hospital and they are not able to go against medical advice, or what are called the DCRs, and those are the individuals that can detain a person for being gravely disabled or harm to self or others. We are super fortunate in Olympia to have a DCR dedicated to the Olympia Police Department 40 hours a week. But one of the things I have to remind folks, and this isn't like, I don't want to be the harbinger of bad news, but disturbing is not detainable. And so oftentimes we see a lot of disturbing behaviors from individuals, but that is not a detainable situation oftentimes. And so my heart does go out, and I am completely empathetic to seeing the trauma that our community witnesses on a daily basis, but understanding the parameters that each of our teams have. And what I've been trying to frame my logic model of is, when serving the community, what are the skills that are needed in the response, what are the resources needed in the response, and what's the authority needed in the response. So if you want someone arrested, don't call Crew or Katherine. If you want some problem solving skills, or if you want some skills that Katherine and her team bring, that's definitely call on Katherine. If it's something that you're really worried about an individual outside your building, you don't feel like they're committing a crime, you want some crisis intervention or some de-escalation or trauma-informed response, then I would be, or my team would be the correct team to respond. I think one of the biggest things that we do is we are really recognizable. All 3 of these teams are really recognizable in the uniforms that they wear. So the crisis response unit are on police radio. Their jackets say crisis response unit on the back. They're in pairs of 2 as well. so that you know that there is a response that is occurring in downtown, so that it should give you a little bit of relief to be like, okay, somebody is engaging with this individual. Our goal, just like Sergeant Parker's and just like Katherine's, is to respond and assess. So if you request the crisis response unit and your results are not satisfactory, please reach out to me. Similar email address to Shelby, but it's alarsen@ci.olympia.wa.us, and we will definitely problem solve. I can't fix a bad response if I don't know about a bad response, and so please reach out to me. We're always learning and growing, and we want to make sure that we are serving the community in the best manner possible. So that's it for me. I think I'm sure there'll be questions.
Okay, thank you, Anne. So I'll just spend a few minutes talking about our Downtown Guide program. The Downtown Guide program that I'm going to share my screen here was developed in 2018. It is an ambassador, small a, ambassador model of service, which is employed in downtowns across the nation. I know our model, there were conversations with downtown Spokane about the model there. So similar model of service, a much smaller footprint in terms of our service, and it is funded solely by private investment into the program of property owners and small business owners within what I think most people would consider our downtown core. It's grown over the last few years from 7 blocks to about 12 blocks downtown, but still in the core. One of our main areas of emphasis is just presence and frequency. So our goal, and we're able to achieve this goal, and we're mindful of this when we talk about any program expansion, is to be able to touch every piece of property within that downtown core, within that service area, at least once an hour. So we're moving around constantly. What you see here is drawn directly from our annual report, our 2020 annual report. As you see here, we did in 2020 increase our hours of service to 80 hours per week. We were short-staffed, like a lot of you on the call, I'm sure were and have been, but we recently added a second downtown guide. We are out on the street actually starting this week, Sunday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 7 p.m. and then Saturday, where there's overlap between our two downtown guides, 7 a.m. to 10 p.m. And we'll flash those hours for all of the service in the next slide, just to give you a sense. So we are 2 full-time guides. Of the measurables and what we're tracking, like programs of this nature, and all of us on the call today, we all have our own kind of collection systems and data for the work that we're doing out there. Overwhelmingly, I will say, we do friendly engagement. So we're trying to distribute information to visitors that are coming through our downtown, or community members, about events that are going on, or where a great cup of coffee is, where you can find a good burger for lunch, or a good craft brew, that sort of thing. So that's the fun part. We also do, so we did almost 5,000 of those friendly engagements in 2020. In terms of homeless outreach, we did almost 2,000. We provided food and water over 1,700 times in 2020. We made almost 800 referrals to social service organizations. So we carried around literature and try to keep ourselves abreast of, what's going on in terms of services in the community. Katherine and her team, Anne and her team, are great resources for information for us, and constantly kind of keeping us up to date on what's going on in that regard. We also do trespass engagements for stakeholders. We did nearly 1,300 of those in 2020, and we do work in partnership with the city. So we do call city resources. Typically, the conversations that we have and the engagements we have, we're able to work through those encounters without calling city resources, but we do exercise those if necessary. So that's the Downtown Guide program. Happy to take in the question box, and I'll just remind you, there is that question box that's accessible. I am getting questions through, so I think we got plenty to take us through to the end of the session. But I will cut and paste what you see on your screen to the chat box as well. And the panelists and I haven't talked about this, but what I'm going to request of them is that, you know, the four of us on this call come together to put together a document featuring the information and some of the bare bones information that we've shared today with our business community that they can have. I think we'll do it as a standalone. I'll also mention that organizationally, we're working on a welcome packet for new businesses, which will also assist existing businesses and property owners downtown for resources like we talked about today. So I would expect that'll be part of that as well. So I'm just going to quickly run through hours of operation. So when are we out there? The walkie patrol, and this came directly from the folks on this call, are out there 7 days a week, 6:20 a.m. to 8:40 p.m. There's 24/7 coverage from patrol, and the district includes downtown, South Capitol neighborhood, for example. So obviously, you know, anytime at your fingertips, there is that availability. The ambassadors are presently on the streets Tuesday to Saturday, 8:30 to 5, starting December 1. They're on 7 days a week, so really excited about that. I had an opportunity to meet with the new ambassadors last week. Excited about them being out there and what they're going to bring to downtown as well. So 7 days a week, 8 a.m. to 7:10 p.m., then every other Wednesday from 8:30 to 5 p.m. Crisis response unit, Ian mentioned this, presently Monday through Thursday, 7 a.m. to 8:40 p.m., Friday through Sunday, 10 a.m. to 8:40 p.m. And then starting the first quarter, plan to be every day, and I believe 6 a.m. to 3 a.m. So what does that leave? You know, 21 hours on the clock, 3 hours of non-coverage. So that's just huge. And then our downtown guide program, Sunday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 7 p.m., Saturday from 7 a.m. to 10 p.m. I'll just make a comment that with the recent legislation that came through in the legislative session, law enforcement agencies and cities are making interpretations everywhere about, how to apply that within their jurisdictions. And a lot of municipalities are grappling to stand up programs just like ours. And so we have a head start on that. We have resources that are out there, and we're adding to those resources that, is particularly notable given that new legislation and some of the requirements of the new legislation. So with that, I am going to stop the screen share, and we have we got a little over 15 minutes for questions. So please add your questions to the box, and I will do my best to interpret your questions and put them out there to the appropriate individual. So the first kind of topic that we've been asked to address is graffiti and vandalism, and it's probably a Sergeant Parker question. What are we doing about it? How do we handle it? That sort of thing.
I'm sure you have all seen, like I have through walking downtown, that we have an uptick right now, and it comes in cycles, and it seems like we've got a cycle that came up. So all the graffiti is tracked through our volunteers and policing services in a database to try to keep track of where all the graffiti is, what the words are, what the images are. And so when we make an arrest, we can hopefully bring all of those cases behind that arrest. It is really challenging to catch graffiti artists. While their work looks massive and expansive and it looks like it would take a long time, happens very, very quickly. And so the community, you guys are our eyes and ears. You are going to help get us there. Sometimes we on-view it because we just happen to be in the right place at the right time. But if you see something, we need you guys to be calling in and getting an officer to respond. Certainly if you were to find graffiti on your building, you can report it to the police department. And so it becomes part of that ongoing database. Clean Team is amazing. They are on top of the graffiti. They are out there every single day covering it up. So they're a fantastic resource too.
Thank you. And I just want to second the Clean Team. Most of you out there on the call probably understand them as a resource. I will put that number in the chat as well, but they do a great job. They're always feels like right around the corner and really responsive. Sergeant Parker, I'm just going to ask as a follow-up. I know in the past OPD has kind of had special projects, special details, has it been considered, or is it a consideration for OPD to really take on, given the uptick in graffiti, a special detail to try to mitigate, minimize, and disrupt that?
It's really challenging. Right now, the focus is certainly on felony level crimes, and those really have to do with crimes against people. And so the work would be focused there. The downtown walking patrol is certainly paying attention to the graffiti. Again, by people notifying us, that's helpful. In terms of special units, there aren't the resources right now. The police department is at a critical staffing point, and so we're covering our basic necessities right now.
Okay, thank you. Moving on, so another a question or issue. We have someone on the line that's saying they have an issue with a squatter on commercial property. Repeated friendly attempts to have the person move on have not worked. Are officers serving declarations / request to remove trespasser notices per the RCWs?
Absolutely, yes is the answer. And so that is a great call for your walking patrol officers. We will come down, we will make the contact, we will serve them with the official notice that they need to leave. And then we will work with the business. If the expectation is they need to go now, then we will help in that process. More often than not, we are able to succeed in people saying, okay, just needed the notification, here we are, I don't want to go to jail and I'm going to leave. Sometimes, especially maybe the situation that's being described to you, could end up in an arrest situation. And what we just need the caller to understand is you're going to have to participate in that process. What that means is filling out a statement saying, here's the problem. Yes, I'm willing to prosecute. More often than not, these crimes end up resolved. They don't end up going to court. The goal is to feed everything to our community court to get people help and to change their circumstances. But we do need that cooperation.
Thank you. We've got a couple of questions in the queue for Sergeant Parker regarding staffing, and I think they're related. So you mentioned 2 new coming on. Is that added staff or is it replacement? And there's kind of a companion question about how many walking patrol officers will you have staff January of 2022?
So come January of 2022, if there aren't any unforeseen emergency staffing issues within the police department, I will have 6 officers. So 3 are on when they're resting, the other 3 are on. Right now, I have 5. One of my officers had to backfill up to detectives, and so I'm down 1 officer. When we talk about staffing, the police department has a fundamental response to the city of Olympia to be able to answer 911 calls. And there's contractual language of the number of officers that we have to provide to the city. And so the 2, what we refer to as the backbones of the police department, is the patrol division and the detective division. Without those 2 units being fully staffed, our response to the public is hampered, crippled. And so unfortunately, we start robbing from our specialty units to cover those basic necessities. Those specialty units, we have the neighborhood police officer program, we have the traffic officer program, and then we have the walking patrol. We understand the vital importance of walking patrol to our downtown stakeholders. Those officers will be the last to be absorbed into the critical needs of 911 response. So right now, unfortunately, our sergeant for our traffic unit was just absorbed and is going into the patrol division. And so you can see kind of these extra services are going to be peeled back until we can get our foundation back underneath us.
Okay, thank you. So we have, there's a question about whether the webinar is being recorded. If I did mention it earlier, I should have, yes, it is being recorded. This is intended for those on the call right now, but also as a training tool, kind of an orientation for new staff and new stakeholders in downtown. So we will certainly, to those on the call, be sending out information and links to this webinar that you can use in the future. We had a question about any kind of poster with info on who to call for what services. I think that's kind of a follow-up piece that this group can work through. And really, it's already in process as part of our welcome package as well. So there's a question for Anne. What specifically have been the successes of the crisis response unit? And what would you say are the biggest challenges for the crisis response?
Yeah, so I measure success for the crisis response unit in 3 kind of broad strokes. One is, does the community know about us? So we track data every quarter that I roll up to our chief or to city council. And one of the data points is, how are we contacted? So are we contacted through TCOM? Are we contacted through OPD? Are we contacted through self-initiated contacts? So they're out walking on the streets, being proactive, or they're following up with somebody, or they're on a call at the mission and then somebody else waves them down. Are they contacted by city staff, etc.? And so what we've seen is an enormous leap in calls dispatched through TCOM 911. So it is the most common way now. So that means the community knows about us and is using us. So that is huge. So that's success number 1. Success number 2 is, are our officers using us? So we're not a legitimate alternative response if traditional first responders are not tapping out and tapping us in. So are our officers using us? Yes, they're like the second most common way that we're making contact with individuals. So if an officer, whether they're in downtown or whether they're working patrol, rolls up on a situation where it's an unwanted typically, or disorderly, or substance use or behavior health, could be in 7-Eleven, it could be at Sylvester Park, are our officers requesting us and using us and then trusting that response? And is that response robust and nimble enough that the officers are walking away and can respond to other calls for service? And then are our clients or our consumers better off? And so when they engage with us, is there always going to be a solution? No. The back of our jackets doesn't say crisis solutions team, it says crisis response team. So is the individual better off? Did they get some socks? Did they get connected to some resources? We put a lot of people up in hotels. We do not have enough shelter in the city of Olympia or in Thurston County in general. And so sometimes it means connecting someone to a hotel room for the night, getting them on a bus the next day. We see a lot of calls for service around domestic violence. We're going to probably see more calls for service around that, being the holidays. So those are kind of the broad strokes of how we garner success. Also in detainment. So it's really hard. The bar to get an individual detained in Washington State is almost, it seems at times, impossible. But our crew team has such good knowledge and such trusted knowledge that when they put somebody on a what's called like a DCR alert, or they call the DCRs to have somebody involuntarily detained because they are a harm to self or others or gravely disabled, those detainments are more successful and people are getting the help and stabilization that they need.
Great, thank you. Just a note on kind of some of the upstream and downstream impacts. Anne mentioned voluntary detainment and the laws in that state of Washington. It's a really high bar. And downstream also, if an individual is detained, capacity from a mental health perspective, or in terms of facilities, beds for our houseless community. The Downtown Alliance is having conversations with the city about how can our business community help to communicate that. And we'll be having those conversations at our board level about what position we'd like to take on those things. Overall, I would say the city of Olympia is doing a lot, and a lot more than a lot of cities, but they're never going to have the resources from a financial perspective to quote unquote solve the problem. Those resources really are more at a state and federal level. So we are starting to have that conversation within the organization about how can we help to have conversations at the state level with state legislators in the next legislative session. I'm going to tack on a question for Anne and Shelby. I think part of the frustration our downtown community feels at times is, they may see OPD show up or crisis response show up and engage with individuals who are, engaging in, I'll call antisocial behaviors. Anne, you mentioned earlier, someone who's acting in a disturbing fashion is not necessarily illegal, but there is, some line that we're all, I think, trying to figure out between that and disorderly conduct, disturbing the peace sort of things. And in the Olympia Municipal Code, it talks about, you know, any time as to unreasonably disturb or interfere with the peace, comfort, and repose of owners or possessors of real property. So I'll put that there, Shelby. And, you know, when your teams walk away because they don't feel like they can do anything about it, that leaves that individual there in our community experiencing that individual in crisis and kind of how that's manifesting itself. Where's that gray between the law and, you know, just behaviors that we can't do anything about? Maybe that's a Shelby question, to be fair to Ann.
I think it's definitely in both of our courts. I'll talk about legal authority. So when law enforcement responds to a scenario where somebody is exhibiting disturbing behavior, that reporting party, whoever called dispatch or flagged us down, they are a very important part of that puzzle, because as you read the statute, it requires somebody to be disturbed, the owner of property, and we need a victim for that. So I, as a police department, cannot look at an individual and say, whoa, that's disturbing behavior, I need to take enforcement action. I need the person calling to put it down on paper and to be willing to testify in a court as to how this person disturbed their peace. And I appreciate the checks and balances of the system. We need folks independent of the police department to be disturbed. We can't be the analysis on that. And then, unfortunately, the legislative changes, it did take away one of the three-legged stool of how we handle folks with mental illness. So if somebody is a danger to themselves, or they are a danger to others, or they are gravely disabled, those used to be the ways that we could take somebody involuntarily to St. Pete's to get mental health help. Unfortunately, with the legislation, we lost gravely disabled. So if somebody is appearing like they can't care for themselves and they don't have any behavior that's creating an imminent harm to somebody else or themselves, I don't have the legal authority to take them involuntarily to the hospital, nor does Ann teams. However, the DCR does, and that's where the communication of the teams is vitally important, because Ann's team can work directly with the DCR can respond, they can deem, potentially, the person as gravely disabled and have that detainer. And I think at that, I'll turn it over to Ann.
Can I just insert though, Shelby, maybe one of you can address, what's a DCR? Maybe I missed that, you know, you said what the acronym was, and whose staff are they on? How many do we have? That sort of thing.
A DCR is a designated crisis responder. I'm going to turn that over to Ann.
So they're RCWs that the DCRs work under. And so it's the Involuntary Treatment Act. DCRs in the state of Washington work for a plethora of different organizations. In Thurston County, it's through Olympic Health and Recovery Services. And they have a 24-hour crisis hotline that community members can call. So you don't have to call law enforcement or the crew team to have a DCR evaluation or a crisis team come out to your location. And Todd, I'll get you that number so you can share it with your group. But we have one DCR dedicated to the city of Olympia, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, from 10 a.m. to 8 p.m. This is huge. I mean, this is really, it was funded initially through a grant. The city has now extended it and is paying for it out of the public safety levy. They also can bill Medicaid. So what happens is someone calls and crew responds, or OPD responds, or Katherine's team responds, and they're like, this person cannot take care of themselves. This person can't find shelter, can't find food, is like weaving in and out of traffic, is a harm to themselves or others. And that's where they can be put on like a 72-hour hold. This whole public health, you know, landscape is super complicated, and it's really, I want to like reiterate for the folks on the call, it's not I don't want to put this on the burden on you to diagnose a crisis. So my recommendation is, if you're seeing something that is disturbing, you can always, when you call dispatch, request a crew and OPD walking patrol response. You can request a dual response so that they're both arriving on scene. And if you've seen walking patrol and crew interact together, they bring similar skills, but crew just has a different resource. And then the authority is there if the authority is needed from Shelby's team. So you can always call dispatch and ask for a dual dispatch or a coordinated response between crew and walking patrol. And just don't, please, I just don't want folks to be on this call being like, do I have to get an MSW and figure out what's what and detainable? No, no, no. Like, call, ask for a response in person or ask for a phone detail, and always reach out to me if you tried something and you said, and I heard this on a webinar that Ann Larsen said to do this and I tried it and it failed miserably. Like, reach out to me and we'll figure it out so that the next time it's better.
Thanks, Ann. So we are at 10 o'clock now. I'm going to ask for the panelists grace with maybe a few more minutes of their time, if that's okay. Just a few more questions here, and we're not going to get to all of them. Unfortunately, we do have a lot of questions, which is great. I'm going to try to hit, some of those that are, that a few of them are around. I know there are questions and you just touched on it around, hey, should I be calling non-emergency? Should I be calling the ambassador line? And that's a question that, our downtown stakeholders have had since I've been here for the last 4 years. I'm not sure, Shelby, if you can help unmuddy those waters. I think what I heard earlier was call 911. If they don't feel like it's an emergency, they'll sort you to non-emergency and then they'll dispatch. Anything to add to that? And, second part of it is are the ambassadors on called out from dispatch as well?
So the only folks that are on that receive calls directly from TCOM, Thurston County Communications 911, is crew and the police department and the fire department. And so the ambassadors have their own dispatch, and Katherine can speak to that. Truly, just to echo what Ann said, I don't want folks, when there's a crisis or an emergency, to really be burdened with, who do I call? If in doubt, call 911. That's fine. They'll transfer you off the line if they don't think it's an emergency. And it's not as though they're keeping track of how many times this business called 911. So please call 911. That's fine. And then feel free to call the non-emergency line. I do need you to understand that when you call the non-emergency line, and if it is a theft where the person has left and there's no longer a threat to harm or anybody else, all of the calls from callers into dispatch are prioritized by 4 levels of priority. And anything that where a person is in harm's way, that's going to be a priority 1 call. We're going to get there. We're going to get there fast. A theft where a person has left, it's going to be a level 4 call. It could, what we say, pend for hours potentially, based upon how long it takes staff to get to it. And unfortunately, that's the way of things. In Thurston County, we are blessed in that our response is very fast. Seattle, I was on hold for over an hour just to talk to a 911 operator, and that was non-emergency. So we are very fortunate in this area. Calling the ambassadors, again, I'll let Katherine talk to that. I do notice that their folks call the ambassadors because they're phenomenal problem solvers. They're so excellent at what they do. And they may call them a little bit too much when it's actually an emergency where they do need law enforcement. So please don't hesitate to call us. We are fantastic problem solvers. If we recognize this is an illegal authority issue and the ambassadors would be better suited or crew would be, we're going to do that handoff. And so our walking patrol officers, they're fantastic. They're really good communicators. I don't want people to be afraid to call law enforcement because they're afraid of what may happen. We will choose the appropriate ending if we're not it.
Great, thank you. I think I'll just ask one last question and then let you all go. There were a couple questions in the box about use of video. If there is video footage of someone tagging, graffitiing, or doing anything illegal, can you use that? Do you want that?
Yes, I have one business owner downtown who is fantastic, has amazing cameras and keeps on upgrading them and sends me all of his footage, and it's perfect. What I do then is I take that footage and I put it out to the patrol division for them to be on the lookout for this person, and it helps us to build those cases. Video is fantastic, so anytime you have it, please make law enforcement aware of it. I am finding that sometimes folks have it and they're not informing law enforcement of that. It doesn't capture everything, and that's important to understand. Is there may be something that happened on that video that wasn't captured, so we need to understand that. But please, yes, send it to the police department, and we can push it on to patrol.
Great.
Todd, can I answer the dispatch question for the ambassadors real quick? Just for the folks that might not have used our service. So when you call us, you get ambassadors immediately, or you get a voicemail, but you'll get a person. And what people appreciate about the ambassadors is that we're downtown only, and that we will try to give you an ETA. Like, you are going to hear from an ambassador when you call us. I always encourage people, there's no harm in calling the ambassadors and the non-emergency or 911, because sometimes crew is on a really important call, but they're on the west side and we're just right around the corner because we don't leave the core, right? And then we can also, we're all kind of like players on a soccer team, so we can pass the ball, but I don't think there's an issue with calling both programs. And if one shows up before the other, my whole thing is at least you get that service. And we do trespass engagement, de-escalation. We engage with folks that are experiencing their own reality, but you can also call the ambassadors for what's going on with the construction, what's going on, are there any grants available? Like, we do city business stuff as well. Crew, that's what they do. They are the crisis responder. We can do a little bit of, you can use us for a bunch of other things. So, yeah.
Great. Okay. Well, I want to thank all of you for the information. I'm getting good feedback and the questions just about all the information that was provided. Really helpful. We will be putting this out, as I've mentioned. If we're recording it, we'll be putting it out. We'll be putting links out there to our member community, our Downtown Alliance member community, as well as the Downtown Business Database overall. You can find more information about our organization at downtownolympia.org if you don't know. So thank you, Sergeant Parker. Thanks, Ann. Thanks, Katherine, for being here. And you'll see them around town. I think we got all your questions. If we didn't, you should see the email addresses and phone numbers in the chat that you can get to. Thank you for your time. Now I just need to figure out how to stop it.
Are people still listening to us?